Good afternoon, students, family, and friends of Stonebridge Christian School. A few weeks ago, we decided to forfeit our girls' volleyball game after finding out that one of the opposing teams in the second round state playoff game, might I add, had a male on their team. Competing against a male claiming to be a female goes against our religious beliefs here at Stonebridge. We aim to reflect biblical truth in everything we do, on the court as well as in the classroom, and God's word is very clear. Girls are girls and boys are boys. And when it comes to girls' athletics, our girls must compete against girls because that is how God created us. We will not be complicit in a false message. Our vision here at Stonebridge is that students will be equipped academically, spiritually, physically, and socially to impact their community and their world for God. We will continue to impact our community for God by standing up for our religious beliefs, biblical truth, and what is right. We are proud of our girls for courageously standing for truth, and it wasn't easy, was it, girls? Students, today we have a big surprise for you. Riley Gaines has flown here from her home in Nashville to present the varsity girls volleyball team with the Riley Gaines Medal of Courage Award for their bravery. Riley, if you aren't familiar, is a former swimmer at the University of Kentucky. She is a 12-time NCAA All-American and a 5-time SEC champion. She's great. During Riley's senior year of college, Riley unfortunately was forced to compete against a male swimmer. Since then, Riley has been advocating for fairness in women's sports to protect the next generation of female athletes. I am so grateful that Riley has taken the time to be with us today, and I am honored to welcome her here to Stonebridge Christian School in Merced, California. Please welcome athlete, author, and courageous voice in this movement, Riley Gaines.
Oh my goodness, well, thank you guys for the warm reception, because let me tell you, in the state of California, you never really know how you're going to be received, but to be among so many, we spent some time before this with the board and with coaches of different teams, with of course Julie and Renee, and let me tell you, the leadership that you have here at this school is bar none. I found myself in many scenarios similar to this, but being in that room with them, and of course the statements that have been released from the leadership here, is spirit-led. And it's not something you just see, you can feel it, and I felt it in that room just an hour or so ago. It wasn't too long ago that I was sitting in the same place that you are now, watching my high school teams play in the bleachers, which I know what all of you are thinking. You're just glad to be let out of class right now, and I'm thrilled to be someone who has enabled this for you all. But what we're here today to celebrate, and I don't use that word lightly, are the amazing girls who are on this court sitting in these chairs right here, and the decisive and emphatic actions that they took to say what we all in this room and what majority of us around the nation and really globally know to be true, and that is that there are two sexes, and that you can't change your sex, and that each sex is deserving of equal opportunity, of privacy, and of safety. Many of you, I'm sure, are wondering, who is this girl? Why is she the one speaking before all of us? Let me just give you a very brief background on me, and maybe what qualifies me to be here. As you heard, I was a swimmer. I swam at the University of Kentucky. I imagine, how many of you in this room are athletes? It's everybody, basically. And of course, parents of athletes. I don't have to spend too much time elaborating on what it takes, right? The sacrifice and the time and the hours and the dedication. I started swimming when I was 4. I graduated when I was 22, so dedicated 18 years of my life to my sport. I was very fortunate to make it to the highest level, pursuing my collegiate career in college at the University of Kentucky, as I said. Did some amazing things that I'll really forever be proud of. Finished my career as a 12-time NCAA All-American, 5-time SEC champion, actually the SEC record holder in the 200 butterfly, making me one of the fastest Americans of all time. Two-time Olympic trial qualifier. Cheer of the Year, and the list goes on, but again, just to reiterate, it really is a lifelong journey. But it was my senior year where we were faced with a similar reality to what this community has been impacted by. About 3 weeks before our national championships, which is the meet you work all year for, similar again to the state championships that these girls were set to compete for. About 3 weeks before, we were alerted that a male would be competing against us. This was a man who previously, the year prior, ranked in the 400s and 500s nationally when competing against the men, to when 12 months later he was dominating the entire country of women and girls. We knew this was wrong. My teammates, of course myself, my other competitors, my coaches, my athletic director, we all knew it was wrong. We knew it was unfair. We knew having a man undressing next to us in the locker room, standing at 6'4", we knew that was wrong. We knew the silencing that we were facing from our universities, our institutions, how really they effectively silenced us, muzzled us. We knew all of that was wrong. But none of us, including myself, had the courage that these girls on this court today had. And so I got to that national championships that first day, and it was the 500 freestyle, which is not an event that I do. And so I watched on the side of the pool as he swam to a national title, beating out Olympians, beating out American record holders. I mean, girls we just saw win Olympic gold medals a few months back. And he beat them all by body lengths. The next day, he and I were set to race against each other. And so, of course, we get on the blocks and we dive off. It was 200 freestyle, and so we swim 8 laps, and I touch the wall at the end. And I look up at the scoreboard behind me, and almost impossibly enough, he and I had gone the exact same time down to the 100th of a second, meaning that we had tied, which is pretty rare, right? When you're racing for about a minute and 40-ish seconds. Not even 1/100th of a second separated us, which now looking back, you can't tell me that's not divine intervention. But anyways, what really thrusted me over the edge, we go behind the awards podium where the NCAA official looks at both this male athlete and myself, again, him towering over me, and this official says, "Great job, you two, but you tied." And we don't really account for ties. We only have one trophy, and we're going to give that trophy to the male. I was so taken aback in this moment, and I asked the question that no one dared ask all season, at least not publicly, and I asked the question of why. Why are you adamant on giving the trophy to the man in the women's 200 free? To which this official, he didn't have a response. He didn't have a justification or a rationale. And I appreciate his honesty because he looked at me and he said, well, you know, we've been advised as an organization that when photos are being taken, it's crucial that the trophy is in the male's hands. Again, you can pose with this one, but you have to give yours back. He takes the trophy home, you go home empty-handed, end of story. Let me tell you what, that was the moment when. That's when I finally found the courage that these girls had from the very beginning of this. Because it was at that point I was no longer willing to wait. Because truthfully, up until then, I just believed that someone else would do something. I believed that a coach would stand up for us. I believed that someone within the NCAA, someone with political power, some other swimmer, someone's dad, quite frankly, would come down there and yank this man out of our locker rooms, like my dad so desperately wanted to do. I just naively believed that someone whose job it was to protect us, that they would protect us. But it was in that moment, on that podium, holding this trophy that I knew I had to give back, sharing my placement with a man who stood 8-9 inches taller than me, when I finally realized, Riley, this realization of Riley, how in the world can you expect someone to stand up for you if you're not even willing to stand up for you? This has to come from you all as women, as female athletes. So again, that's kind of the unfairness of it. On top of the locker room, as I mentioned, which I can't even describe, I can't even put into words, the total violation, how awkward it is, how embarrassing it is, how uncomfortable, how humiliating it is to be forced to share a changing space with a male who is undressing next to you. On top of, again, the free speech aspect and how the things that we were told to keep us quiet, all led me to take that initial leap of faith, which, again, that's not what we're here to talk about. What we're here to talk about and to honor are the girls who stand sit on either side of me. That's what this is about. I was so encouraged a few weeks ago when I saw the headline that was released along with the statement that was issued by this school that read so beautifully. It was a statement like we haven't seen anyone else. There's been a couple other teams across the nation, none in California, by the way, but a couple other teams across the nation who have forfeited games, but none of them have released a statement, even still, like the one that Stone Ridge Christian released. So perfectly stating what the issue at hand is. They cited, of course, reasons of safety and of the integrity of sport, but more importantly, far more importantly, they cited reasons of this does not align with our religious liberty, that what we honor and what we value as a school. They said in this letter, this email, that God created male and female, and he doesn't make mistakes. He created them intentionally and uniquely in his perfect image, and we will not participate in the farce. That in and of itself deserves an applause, because there have been that has really set the standard for other schools, especially other Christian schools, to follow. I'll leave you all, because again, what I'm here to talk about, what these girls have faced, please know it's not just these girls who have been or who have the potential to be impacted. It's everyone who sits here. It's not just female athletes. No, it's man, woman, old, young. Forget any identity factor. It doesn't matter. No one is immune to this movement and the effects that it has had and will potentially continue having. And so my encouragement for you all, number one, is to trust God's calling for you and answer when he knocks. That where I am now, please know this is never what I wanted to be doing. I think you have to be a little bit clinically insane to want to be in the position that I have found myself in. I was in dental school, actually, after college, to be a dentist, an endodontist, weirdly enough, which is a dentist who performs root canals. That's what I was going to be doing. I knew nothing about our government or our civil process. I never had to take a government course. I knew we had 3 branches. Didn't know what they did. I still don't know what they do. I don't even think they know what they do, to be totally honest with you. My public speaking courses in high school and in college, I made my face turn the color of a tomato. By no means did I feel prepared for this, but please hear me when I say that is absolutely not how God works. He does not call those who are already prepared. No, it's the exact opposite. He prepares those who he calls. And if he brings you to something, he will certainly bring you through it. Ask these girls, right? What about Moses, who led the Israelites out with Aaron and his staff? What about Joshua, who he promised a victory over the Canaanites? Or what about Esther, before she was brought before the king? Which reminds me of a verse. It's a verse that gets thrown around quite a bit in today's world, the Esther 4:14, right? For such a time as this, we hear that a lot. But I think we forget the front half of that verse, because again, it applies to every single person in this room. It says, for if you remain silent. That's talking to all of us. For if you remain silent, you and your father's family will perish. We were not saved as Christians to be silent. Understand, you're here and you learn of the values and the morals, Christian values, biblical values. But we weren't called to be Christians, we were called to be disciples. And that's what these girls have been. They have lived by His word and by scripture. They've lived that out through their actions. And that's something that all of us in our everyday lives have the ability to do. And so again, to be here to honor them, maybe the objective was for me to inspire you all, but truthfully, it is this that inspires me. Looking at a bunch of young people, let me tell you, I found myself in many different political scenarios and situations, and I'm the youngest one by probably like 80 years. So to be in a room full of youth is empowering and revitalizing, and it reminds me why we fight. Because it's this. It's the next generation. And one more quick story before we honor them with their Medal of Courage. This issue, of course, has become exponential in terms of how often it's happening, where it's happening, of allowing men onto women's teams, taking scholarship and roster spots and travel spots for my hard-working, deserving woman. Well, right here, not far at all, in California, we've seen this at the collegiate level happening in the sport of women's volleyball. San Jose State University has allowed a man onto their women's volleyball team. But we've seen 5 teams, in a similar capacity, ultimately decide to boycott. Emphasis on the word boy, hence my shirt. But 5 teams have done this: Utah State, Southern Utah, Boise State University, University of Wyoming, and University of Nevada. But last week was the Mountain West Conference Championship, which is almost the pinnacle of your sport. The only thing higher than that is the NCAA tournament, which is the next step. And at the Mountain West Conference Championship, San Jose State University was set to play Boise State. Boise State had already previously forfeited earlier in the season, but they were left with a difficult decision, this game in particular. Because if they were to decide to forfeit or boycott, it would prematurely end their season. It would mean they don't get a chance to play at the NCAA tournament. There was so much on the line. But guess what they did? They decided to boycott. And so I was talking with the girls afterwards. You know, what is it that inspired you to do this? I know you've already done it once at one point in the season, but you had so much to lose this game in particular. What gave you the courage? You know what they told me? They said Stone Ridge Christian. They said these girls face the exact same thing, but they're much younger than us. And they did the right thing. And in doing that, it gives us the courage to continue to stand tall, to stand firm in objective truth, and again, in biblical truth. All of that to say, yes, this impacts this school, it impacts this community, but please know the ability of which you are able to have impact extends far beyond this community. Now the NCAA, of course, they are forced to address this issue, and I believe had Stone Ridge and these girls on this court not taken the steps that they did to ensure that they won't allow themselves to be discriminated against on the basis of their sex and against their religious liberty, then I don't believe Boise State would have taken the same actions. So again, you should be very proud of yourselves. Those of you who aren't athletes, which pretty much, again, everyone raised their hand, it's hard to grapple with the sacrifice that you make, the time that you put in, how many hours you've spent on this court. But those people who are like me, we understand. And I wish desperately I had the courage that you guys did when I was faced with this. So thank you for setting the precedent, for leading the way, not just again for yourselves, but for many generations to come. I believe you girls will be in history books on the right side of things for defending biological reality and again, biblical truth. So thank you guys. Again, one more applause for them. And just to reiterate again, that doesn't come without strong leadership from the top. So everyone at this school, you're again very blessed. This is not something that's common even amongst Christian schools. We've seen a pretty big divide, so to have leaders who are willing to support these girls, to give them the guidance and the resources that they need to do what they did is huge, and so we thank you as well.